Hey, what's up, guys? And welcome to episode 75. My God, we're getting close to 100 of Talk4, the quick-fire podcast where we ask four great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Louis Skupien. That's me. And let me introduce our incredible guest for today, Aaron Fitzgerald, who's going to be answering a few questions today. Aaron, welcome aboard the Talk4 podcast. Please say hi to the fine people listening and just give us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do before I shoot some questions.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Aaron Fitzgerald. I'm very honored to be here. I'm a helicopter pilot. I work for RedBull, and I'm on a team called the Flying Bulls. The Flying Bulls are based out of Austria, Salzburg, in fact, at Hangar 7. It's a beautiful facility if you ever get a chance to go there. But I work primarily in the United States. So I fly air shows all over the United States, representing RedBull and representing helicopters to the larger aviation community.
That's amazing. And let's put it this way then. So I said this to you before we just went on the show, but I just never knew a helicopter could be upside down in any circumstance. Like if I kind of create a picture of something like that happening, I just see disaster. So is that common? Is that something that you get a lot of people just who are like, I didn't even know that could happen? Is that really common?
Yes, it is. In fact, I used to think that myself. I hear that a lot, that people, when they see our program, they say, that's the first time I've ever seen a helicopter go upside down. I didn't know they could do that. But it has been going on for quite some time. The very first helicopter loop that was ever recorded on film was in 1947. There's a Sikorsky test pilot named Tommy Thompson. And that was the first time anybody ever captured it on film. So it's probably the first time anyone ever looped a helicopter. But it's been going on for a long time. The program at Red Bull is one of the most mature and developed aerobatic helicopter programs really ever. And we've got an in-house expert named Rainer Wilke and our chief pilot Blackie Schwartz, who are both helicopter aerobatics experts, and they're the ones who trained all of us internally. And the program's alive and well. And yes, helicopters can go upside down. We can't maintain inverted flight, but we can take them upside down. And most helicopters can do it. It's just a matter of your margin for error and what the aerodynamic performance envelope is as to what maneuvers you can do and how aggressively you can do them.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm going to have to look that up afterwards on here and have a look at that clip. But anyway, so obviously incredible career you've had. And I mean, looking at the stuff that you do, it's jaw dropping, no doubt about it. And I just can't wait to ask a few questions, really. So if you're good to go, should we jump into question one?
Let's get to it.
Right then. So question one, I love to kind of wind the clocks back a bit with people and just see kind of how this all came about. So question one, how did you get into flying in the first place and when did you start flying helicopters?
I started flying when I got out of the Army. I served in the U.S. Army a long time ago. I was a paratrooper when I was in the Army. I didn't fly. So as soon as I got out, I used the educational benefits that's called the Army College Fund or the GI Bill, and I used that towards flight training. And that's what I did. I went immediately to flight school, and I started with helicopters. I didn't start in airplanes and then transition into helicopters, which is more common. For me, I started from zero in helicopters, and that's all I did. I never looked back. And fortunately for me, I was young at the time, like early 20s, maybe 22 when I first started flying helicopters. So I didn't have a lot of overhead, and I was able to be really aggressive and work really hard and work for cheap. And I was able to get a career going right away. So lucky for me, I've been flying helicopters for 30 years for a living, almost 30 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what was the first helicopter that you flew then?
Robinson R-22, which is a little two-seat trainer.
Nice
It's
one.
not very impressive, but it's a great trainer, though. I mean, if you can fly one of those well, then those skills transfer because it's not a very stable aircraft. It's not very much horsepower available, so you develop good habits that do transfer over into the larger helicopters.
Well, yeah, it certainly appears to have done that with your career, that's for sure. But yeah, so let's get into that then. So if we look at the aerobatics side of things you do in the helicopter, which I mean, they're just it's just mind-blowing. I didn't even know, like I said, a helicopter could go upside down and stuff. So how do you even approach like learning to do these kind of things in a helicopter and the aerobatic side of flying? Like, how do you even get into that?
Well, for me, my experience with Red Bull was the only aerobatic experience that I had at that time. Thank you. Yeah. Good reflexes, right? I had been flying helicopters for a long time. When Red Bull asked me if I was interested in taking over as the aerobatic pilot here in the States, I had known everybody at Red Bull for a while because I was providing other helicopter services to them as a vendor. So when they came to me and said, "Hey, do you want to learn how to do this?" I of course said yes, and then of course I had some reservations because it looks pretty exciting and scary, and I didn't know if I was going to get airsick or if I was going to be able to even do it. So we started the program. I trained first with Blackie Schwartz, who was our chief pilot at the time, and he kind of got me going, intro to helicopter aerobatics, and then I did a couple of advanced training camps with Reiner Vilke and Blackie both. Mirko Flame and Felix Baumgartner and all three of us trained together, and we all learned helicopter aerobatics at the same time.
Wow, awesome.
All of us had been flying before. Yeah.
Fantastic. So obviously you kind of touched on this a little bit before, but you kind of said that other helicopters could do this as well. So what makes the RedBull helicopter so special then? And can you actually do these things in other helicopters? And what are the kind of like the requirements there, if you will?
The RedBull helicopters are the BO 105, which, as you probably well aware, it's a German Army helicopter. It was built by MBB, Messerschmitt Bölkow Blohm. They designed it in about 1967, I think, was the first flight, and they've been fielding them since the early 70s. There were about 1,500 of them built. But what makes them unique is the rotor head. It's got a hingeless, bearingless rotor system. So it's a rigid rotor with a solid titanium hub. So it's really, really robust. It's over-engineered. It's super tough. But the blades being rigid in plane mean that you can do all kinds of aerodynamic maneuvers that you can't do with conventional helicopters. A lot of helicopters can do loops and rolls. I've looped and rolled a couple different models, including a Blackhawk.
Wow.
So they'll do it. But what's great about the BO 105 is that it has such a huge margin for error. The performance envelope on that thing is so big, and what we do is well within the capabilities of it. It's a tremendous machine.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can clearly see that. So how can a helicopter actually do that, be upside down for a second? What's like, in a nutshell, what's the science there? Like, how is that working? Why is that able to do what it does in that sense in these air shows? I mean, I can't wrap my head around it really.
Well, as I mentioned before, we can't maintain inverted flight in a helicopter, right? There's no way to introduce negative pitch. And also our engines aren't designed to maintain inverted operation. So we start to lose oil pressure at about 5 seconds or so of being inverted. And losing oil pressure is disastrous for turbine engines. So you don't want to do that. So the way we do it, to get the helicopter upside down, you have to impart some upward energy on it in some way so that you have a little bit of loft. So it's more of a ballistic maneuver. So you kind of pitch it up, get your energy pointed up, and then do your maneuver and then recover as you start to descend. So even in a roll, which is a relatively flat maneuver, there is a little bit of a pitch up where you gain a little altitude, get it around, get it right side up, and maintain your altitude. Some of the other maneuvers take a lot more vertical space, but you're always beginning to fall, beginning to descend when you're upside down. The longer you stay inverted, the more you accelerate downward on the vertical vector.
That's fascinating. So when you look at the videos, I mean, it looks, it just looks amazing. You see this thing, it's breathtaking. You think, oh my God, is this going to be okay? And then obviously it is. So just talk me through this then. Like, how actually safe is it? Is there a danger factor to it? Or is it like literally, you know exactly what's going to happen here in these controlled falls and stuff? And is there like any sort of a danger factor to it? Or is it literally just, it's fine?
It is fine in a nutshell. In one word answer, it's fine. But it's meant to look exciting and dangerous, and we do it at a low altitude, which takes away some of your margin for error. The aerobatic maneuvers themselves aren't inherently dangerous if you do them correctly. Right. It's just like any other maneuver. Some of the control inputs are counterintuitive. So in the beginning stages, when you're learning, that there's kind of a window of danger there where it's easy to make mistakes because you just don't know how to do it and you're not used to it. Sure. But once you've learned it and you get the maneuvers down, then it's very predictable. The outcome is almost exactly what you intend every time. But there is a danger factor. You always remove margin for error when you go down toward the surface, right? So I have a surface level aerobatic waiver, which means I'm cleared to go all the way to the ground at zero altitude in my performance. I don't do that. I kind of set a limit of about 150 feet as a hard deck, and I try to be around 300 for most of the show. It's better for people if you're up a little higher anyway. But yeah, the lower you perform, the lower you do those maneuvers, the less margin for error you have. But the maneuvers themselves, I don't believe, are dangerous, and they certainly don't hurt the aircraft.
Wow, there you go then. So, I mean, you watch these things and you think, "Oh my god, this looks so dangerous." So interesting that obviously it's all fine. So I can now watch it with a little bit less tension in the stomach watching them. But
Yeah.
okay, so obviously looking at kind of like your portfolio and everything. So you've worked on hundreds or well over 100 movies and TV shows and stuff too. So can you tell us about some of that? And has your work been more focused on like the stunt stuff, or is it more about the camera work? And can you describe to us like what was one of the most challenging things you did in that industry?
I like that type of work because all of it's challenging. I primarily focus on the camera platform, so I fly the helicopter that has the camera attached to it mostly. That's kind of my foundational skill set in that world. There are other guys who concentrate more on flying the stunts. On our team, we have a couple of guys who are former Black Hawk test pilots, and they do most of the Black Hawk flying for us on camera. And I tend to be the camera guy. So for me, the challenge is to find a creative and aggressive, energetic way to capture footage. So if you're, shooting another helicopter, if you're chasing cars, or if there's explosions around or whatever, you want to get as close as you can to things to get more relative motion in the frame and things like that. So it's a creative challenge, and I love it. The pay's good. That's how I make my living. But it's a lot of fun too. I really, really like flying. In all, any form of flying I love, but particularly flying cameras. For me, that's just right in my wheelhouse, and I like the creative challenge of it. To find a safe and legal way to do something that's that sounds like a horrible idea on a phone call. Then you have to figure out a way to make it safe, make it legal, and pull it off consistently on camera.
Yeah. So if we go into that a little bit more, and so I don't know if you can talk about, I'm sure maybe you can, but what have been like some of the most prestigious movies or things that you've worked on, and what was probably like the hardest project? If I mean, out of 100 or more, I'm sure there's a lot of options there, but anything that really stuck out?
Yeah, I haven't worked on any of the big movies that like Top Gun. Some of my friends worked on that. One of my partners was the aerial coordinator on that. But I haven't worked on anything really major. I did work on Extraction, which was #1 movie in the world for a short time. That was a Chris Hemsworth movie. We shot that scene in Thailand. That was a ton of fun. We had a bridge sequence where the final scene of the movie is a big firefight across a bridge, and we captured that whole thing from the air. And we had we had 3 helicopters flying around different directions, pyro going off everywhere. It was fun and exciting. I liked it a lot. And then we did one called Cherry in Saudi Arabia that was a big logistical challenge. We were working there with we had 8 Blackhawks and 2 F-15s and tanks and trucks and all that. And my job was to coordinate everything, the scene, everything converged at one point in the desert. So you can imagine the speed differential between a tank and an F-15. So there's a lot of timing and coordination that's involved there. So that's challenging. It's not something you see on camera in terms of, that you just see the result, right? So the challenge of making it happen is something that only we feel.
Yeah, clearly. I can imagine it's hard to coordinate that. You got these things going so fast, and then you got these things going so slow, and it's like, I can imagine there was a fair few takes there. But yeah, I saw Extraction. That's a really good movie. I really liked how they it's kind of a lot of, how do you put it? It's like a lot of innovation kind of behind there too, like the combat sequences and stuff. There was a lot of kind of new things being put into play. There was actually quite a lot of John Wickish kind of things that I felt were there too. And it's just interesting how they've kind of evolved like the filming style and how things are kind of moving in like that direction more. I mean, like the one cut sequences were mental, weren't they?
Oh yeah, that director is Sam Hargrave, and he came from the stunt side. So he was a stunt coordinator, a fight coordinator, and that's his background. So he was the director for Extraction. So obviously you can see that. You can see the DNA of how that movie was created, and through the creative lens that he brings, his skill set. So that was his art showing through for sure. It was a ton of fun to work on. I was really honored to be there.
Absolutely, yeah. Right then, so let's get into kind of. I'm so excited to hear this because I just love this stuff. I'm a huge aviation fan, and I know a little bit about G-Force and stuff. Hey man, good to see you. Yeah, so big fan of aviation, and I went out in an L-39 fighter jet, so I kind of know the feeling of G-Force. So this is something I'm really keen to ask. And so for the people who see the stuff going on, but they can't feel the stuff going on, what does it actually feel like to do a flip in the helicopter? And can you describe what does it actually feel like compared to like a barrel roll or something in a jet, for example, and how much G-force actually is hitting you in these air shows?
Much less in the helicopter than what they experience in the airplanes. Like you were in the L-39, you probably pulled 5 or 6 Gs, maybe. The
6.5, yeah.
jets tend to pull. Nice. That's good. That's a healthy amount of G. So in my display sequence, I typically pull less than 3 positive and then just past 0 on the negative side. So maybe a quarter of a negative G. So it's really kind of mellow. When I take fighter pilots along for the ride, when I take them on my demo, they're always amazed. Like, it doesn't hurt. This is so easy. It's just there's no physical strain on your body. If you can handle being upside down and the spinning and the rotating and keeping yourself oriented, then it's not physically stressful. 3 Gs is no big deal. You feel it, but the 3 Gs is nothing compared to what the competitive aerobatic pilots pull. The Red Bull air race pilots, for instance, it was not uncommon for them to pull up to 12 Gs, which is incredible. That hurts. You don't want anything to do with that. Normal people don't.
Yeah, I mean, there was this video. I'm sure you've probably seen it, but I think it was the Red Bull Air Force, and there was this girl in the back seat of one of these planes, and you see her, and like her face just like melts back into her face. Have you seen that video?
Yeah, that's Emma Bryan. She's a friend of her dad was one of the original Red Bull skydivers. So she's definitely a Red Bull family member. She's an accomplished pilot herself. She's commercial rated and an instrument pilot, still in university right now. Really young, but really a sharp young lady, and really cool to be around, a great pilot. And I have seen that video many times. The guy flying the plane, that's an extra 300, and that's my teammate, Kevin Coleman. So the two of them were up flying together, and that's where that video came from. But it's pretty extraordinary. She's a really pretty girl, and then to watch her face just get pulled like that, you're like, oh man, that looks like it hurts. But she's a champ. You notice it didn't phase her one bit. She was laughing throughout the whole thing.
No, it was crazy. You see her, and it's just like she's just chilling after that too, after this 10 or 12 Gs or whatever it was gets put on. So yeah, credit to her. It was fantastic, but it does put into perspective how powerful these Gs actually are. But so obviously I've felt kind of like the positive side of things. Just describe, so what actually is like the feeling of negative Gs then? Because obviously you get that in a helicopter. So how does that feel, and how different is that?
In the helicopter, we don't push too much negative. I've only pushed about 1 negative in the helicopter, and the aerobatic guys and jet pilots push way more than that. Kevin Coleman, my teammate, does a maneuver in our air show where he has to sustain 5.5 to 6 negative G. He's in an accelerated inverted spin. So, and to describe what that feels like, it's very, very uncomfortable. All the blood rushes up into your head. Your eyeballs feel like they're going to pop out. I haven't pushed a lot of negative. I do fly airplanes too. I have a decathlon, a little aerobatic plane. Nice. And in that I push about 2 negative Gs, and I don't like it. It's not very comfortable at all. I would rather put on 3 or 4 positive than 1 or 2 negative. But it is fun to roll upside down on the plane and just fly around inverted. You can't help but laugh and smile, even though you have 1 negative G. Your veins are bulging out a little bit and your eyes are bulging, but it's still a ton of fun. It feels good.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, so we did a couple of barrel rolls and stuff, among other maneuvers. And there's that moment where you get to like the very top of the barrel roll, and then the engine slows down, kind of getting close to stalling, almost like floating it over the top in a sense. And then that feeling is like so peaceful. It's like so quiet, and it's almost like being in a bath or something. It's an amazing feeling, isn't it? So is the negative G sort of thing a little bit, well, kind of like that, just very extreme, and then the blood rushes to your head, or is that completely different?
The floating sensation you're describing at the top is when you pass through 0. So okay. you're literally floating. There's no gravitational forces on you at all for that brief moment as you float over the top. That's how they do what they call the vomit comet, where they do the parabolas, and then they have 10 seconds of weightlessness as they go over the top, and that's what you're experiencing there. The 0 feels really good. Negative doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, I can only imagine that. You know what, that's so cool. I'm going to use that as bragging rights. I've been 0 gravity before. Let's go.
There you go. Yeah, you're basically an astronaut.
Yeah, pretty much, kind of on the way there, but I think a bit of clever wording or something, and we could probably spruce up the dating profiles. There's something to no end there.
There you go.
Right, so UK boy, obviously came over to the States briefly and kind of did a few things out there, but for people who are like from abroad and they kind of want to get into the aviation side of things and air shows and stuff, what's like your favorite air show to do? And can you give me like a little bucket list or something of must do's around the States or even just internationally for air shows?
Well, if you're a true aviation geek like I am and you love all aspects of it, then you simply have to go to Oshkosh at least once.
Okay.
The town of Oshkosh is a little city in Wisconsin up in the northern part of the United States. And I don't know the population of the town, but it's really quite small. But a gigantic number of people descend on that town. But the show, the fly-in, is actually called Air Venture, but everybody calls it Oshkosh because that's what the town is, where everybody goes. But you have to do that. It's like an air show and a camping trip and a convention and this giant swap meet all rolled into one. And it's not uncommon for there to be 600,000 people there per day. Don't quote me on the exact numbers because it fluctuates, but yeah, it's big. And I think there's over 10,000 aircraft that fly in there. I've been to it now 4 or 5 times, and I still haven't seen all of it. It's amazing.
Repeat that number one more time.
So if you
600,000 people. That's an event.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, it's a big event. So that one's a must do if you want to have the whole aviation experience. But then there's a bunch of really great shows all around the United States. There's some ones that are bigger than that in terms of spectators. We do the one in Huntington Beach in Southern California called the Pacific Air Show. And last year on the Saturday, the crowd estimate, it's not exact, but the crowd estimate was 1.7 million people on the beach. So That's a huge party. And that was a really big one, really fun. Fort Lauderdale is really big. Jones Beach in New York is really big. The big ones are fun just because it's such a huge event, but some of the small ones, I just got back yesterday. I did one in Augusta, Georgia. Augusta is a little town in Georgia that's famous for golf, but it's they had a really nice air show this past weekend. It was smaller, but it's really cool because you can get a lot closer, and it's more of a good one to bring the family to, things like that. So there's a lot of different air shows that are good for different reasons. Go to all of them. Plan a whole tour around the United States and go to all the air shows.
That's a fantastic idea. Obviously, the States, though. So obviously, I'm from the UK. I don't mind it because I'm just a huge fan of it. So glad to do it. But obviously, getting to the States, it's a bit of a jump over the pond. So I think you mentioned that the RedBull stuff is based. Did you say in Austria? Is there anything going on around Europe in that sense, or kind of a little bit close to home?
Oh,
perhaps?
Yeah. You guys have great air shows in all around Europe and in the UK as well. Farnborough is a huge one, and then Duxford is a huge one too. I think the RedBull the Flying Bulls came to England, I think 2 years ago, and brought a whole bunch of the assets. They brought the P-38 and the DC-6 and a couple helicopters. So the RedBull guys may be coming your way, but check the website. Go to the flyingbulls.at for the Austrian side. And I think .com works as well, but you can read it all in English or German, whichever you prefer. And the whole schedule will be up there, and you can see where the team is going to be throughout Europe.
That's awesome.
And there's some really big shows in Europe too. There's Air Power, which is in Austria, and that's a really big one. I've been to that one, but I didn't fly in it.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I need to get on top of this because I'm such a big fan of it, but I just haven't done any of the air shows. I was kind of setting sights on Sun and Fun for next year because I know a few people who are going to be going there, like John Rainwaters, Wiz Buckley, and a couple of the other guys, maybe Jerome LeBlanc and stuff. And are you going to be there by any chance? Bit of Sun and Fun, maybe.
I will. Yeah.
Yes.
As of right now, the plan, I'm scheduled to perform at Sun and Fun next year. We have some contracting stuff to work out, so it's not 100% in the bag. But yes, we have verbally agreed to be there, so I'll be there, and it'll be my first one. I've never been to that show.
Oh, wow, cool. Well, yeah, me too then. Can't wait for that. Just so excited. And last thing to ask as well then, so what can we expect to see from you then in the future? I imagine you're going to keep strong to the aviation side of things, but you working on anything at the moment, and what can people expect to see over the next couple of years?
Well, we've got a couple of stunts cooking up. I don't know if you've been following the RedBull team, but I worked with my teammate Luke Akins on his no parachute jump when he jumped from 25,000 feet and landed in a net. That was a big one that I helped coordinate. We worked through that one over the course of a year or so. I worked on Stratos, which is the one that Felix Baumgartner did. He jumped from 128,000 feet and went supersonic. So those big types of projects. We did one called Plane Swap that was about 50% successful for those who saw it. But we've got some stuff cooking. Some stuff I can talk about, like Plane Swap 2, which is cooking, but we'll see. And then there's a couple things that we can't talk about quite yet, but we're working on a couple of big stunts that will turn into, live broadcast stunts, and it'll be really, really cool and impactful. So stay tuned. And of course, I'll be doing more film and television work, and I'll hopefully, as long as they have me, I'll keep flying that RedBull helicopter at air shows all over the US.
Oh yeah, fantastic. And yeah, I can't wait to see all the stuff that's coming out. It's all so exciting. And well, yeah, look, that has been our 4 questions done for today. And before we wrap it up, it is time for the the shameless plug. So Aaron, feel free to take a minute and just promote anything you're working on. Do you want people to take a look at, just something you believe in? Definitely drop your social media so that our listeners can go and have a look at the craziness you get up to.
Well, the only thing I have to peddle is my Instagram page. That's where we keep track of everything. We post all the cool stuff we're up to. And that's just my name and the number 105 for BO 105. So it's Aaron Fitzgerald 105. Easy to find me. You'll see all kinds of upside down helicopter pictures on it. You'll know you're on the right page right away. And that's about all I got going social media wise. I don't have time to run, all the Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff. But I am on Instagram. You can keep an eye on what we're doing there. Any projects upcoming will all be announced on there, as well as upcoming air shows.
Awesome. Yep, links will be in the description for the YouTube viewers. And you know what? I don't even know what it's called for the Spotify stuff. Just the description. Yeah, loads of links there and everything for all the social media bits and bobs and the RedBull thing. So yeah, guys, go and check that out. But yeah, great stuff, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining me today for the Talk4 podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on and great to have met you.
It's an honor. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. And thank you guys for listening too. This has been episode 75. Wow, 3/4 of the way there to the big 100. We're going for it. And yeah, guys, if you'd like to listen to the past episodes, loads of interesting people, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for the future ones too, make sure to hit that subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. Signing off for now.